You were trained to believe California real estate is untouchable, that even when everything else breaks jobs, markets, cities, families, California homes keep climbing like they're exempt from gravity. That if you can just get your foot in the door, you've secured a legacy, a moat, a future you can pass down. That story worked when California was expanding. More people arriving than leaving. More high-paying jobs than the rest of the country could match. More capital pouring in than the supply of homes could absorb. It worked when the dream had fuel. But in 2026, you're watching a different movie. The glass campuses that once ran 24/7 are quiet. Office lights still glow at night, but it's not engineers at their desks. It's janitorial crews and security guards walking empty hallways. The Inland Empire, which used to catch overflow demand from LA and Orange County, is stacked with listings. For sale, signs stand in rows like headstones. Open houses feel like museums. Stage furniture, empty rooms, no footsteps. Prices didn't cool. They broke. Not a gentle 5% pullback. Not a seasonal dip. In pockets where the entire economy was welded to remote work paychecks, commuter routines, and infinite demand, values fell off a cliff. 20%, 30, 40. And what really rattles people is this. The drops aren't happening in places you expect to bleed first. It's happening across the map wherever the deal relied on one fragile assumption, that tomorrow will look like yesterday. Here's the part nobody wants to say out loud. If you can now walk into markets that used to require 2 incomes and 3 side hustles, and you can buy with cash and still have money left over, the question isn't, is this a bargain? The question is, was the pricing ever real, or was it a group hallucination powered by cheap money, hype, and fear of missing out? Because a housing market isn't just wood and drywall. It's a paycheck ecosystem. It's insurance math. It's infrastructure. It's water. It's safety. It's schools. It's a buyer's belief that the next buyer will show up even more desperate than he is. And when the belief dies, the house doesn't disappear. The liability remains. So let's talk about the cities where the correction turned into something uglier, where the numbers aren't whispering anymore. They're shouting, not because the people were reckless, not because everyone suddenly got stupid, but because the system that supported the prices quietly left the room. And you're standing there holding the contract, the engine behind the collapse. Before we get into the list, understand the mechanics. This didn't happen for one reason. It's stacked. One, high rates didn't just slow buyers, they separated winners from pretenders. When rates stay above the comfort zone, the monthly payment becomes the real price. That's the guillotine. Sellers can argue comps all day, but the bank doesn't care about your memories. The payment sets the ceiling. 2, remote work didn't change where people work. It changed where people live. Once high earners proved they could get paid without being within 30 minutes of the office, the premium for proximity started bleeding out. A lot of California prices were built on location leverage. Remote work didn't dent that leverage, it punctured it. 3, insurance became a second mortgage, not just higher premiums, refusals, non-renewals, shrinking coverage, deductibles that turn disasters into bankruptcy. If you can't insure a home at a price that makes sense, it stops being an asset and starts being a gamble. 4, the middle class did what the middle class always does when the math breaks. It left. People don't stay loyal to a zip code. They stay loyal to survival. When costs rise faster than wages and quality of life falls, families go where the deal is fair. When they leave, demand doesn't cool. It evaporates. 5, Speculators ran out of exits. A market that rises fast attracts people who don't love houses. They love charts. When momentum dies, they try to unload. And once too many sellers are racing for the same door, the door becomes a bottleneck. That's when discounts get violent. Now, the cities. 10. Stockton, the Great California Correction. Stockton used to be the billboard for affordability, a place where people could still get a yard, a driveway, and something resembling the old American deal. Then, the support beams cracked. Foreclosures surged, hard triple-digit increases that weren't driven by luxury overreach, but by fragile employment and rising carrying costs. When the local economy is built on work that can vanish fast, agriculture shifts, logistics cuts, seasonal volatility housing becomes a wager on stability, and wagers don't age well in high-rate environments. 5 years ago, Stockton felt like the workaround. Now it feels like the warning label. Median prices that once sat in can't. Missed territory dropped from the high sixes into the low fours, and the buyer pool changed. It's not younger families trying to build. It's older money chasing square footage, retirees coming from places where the same monthly check buys less and less every year. But there's a difference between buying a house and buying a community. When neighbors are rotating out, when public systems are strained, when the future workforce is shrinking, you're not just buying a property, you're buying into the city's ability to hold itself together for the next decade. And Stockton right now reads like this: cheap entry, expensive risk. 9. Riverside, a suburb, built on a promise that expired. Riverside was sold as the upgrade package. Bigger homes, newer builds, a straight shot to higher paying jobs. A place where you could trade density for space without losing access. That deal relied on commuting and corporate gravity. Then corporate gravity weakened when algorithms and automation cut the need for bodies and seats, and when hybrid schedules turned daily commutes into occasional appearances, the suburban premium started cracking. Developments that were built for an endless wave of buyers became inventory dumps. Homes started sitting. Builders started sweetening. Free upgrades, rate buy-downs, furniture bundles, anything to move units that suddenly had no line of people waiting. And then insurance showed up with a baseball bat. Fire maps don't care about marketing brochures. When wildfire risk expands, insurers don't negotiate. Policies vanish. Costs spike. And suddenly the monthly payment isn't just principal and interest, it's principal, interest, taxes, and a climate penalty that can swing 5 figures. Riverside still has the chain restaurants, the big box convenience, the suburban rituals. But the people who made it feel like an upward move, the stable earners who could turn a mortgage into a long-term win, started stepping away. A market can survive a price dip. It struggles to survive a credibility collapse. 8. Bakersfield. The boomtown that got taken apart. Bakersfield didn't cool. It got dismantled. It's not just about prices. It's about identity. When a town is built around an industry, when the industry is not only the paycheck, but the culture housing prices ride on the back of that industry's confidence. Oil wasn't just employment. It was the engine that fed contractors, retail, restaurants, rentals, and the constant cycling of new residents coming in for work. Then the rigs went quiet. Not dramatically, quietly. Contracts ended. Expansion halted. Jobs didn't always vanish overnight, they thinned out, got relocated, got automated, got squeezed. And once the high-wage labor presence shrank, the housing market stopped having a reason to inflate. Now you can find deals that look insane on paper. Big lots, renovated ranch homes, pools, garages you can actually use. prices that feel like a different decade. But there's a catch. The environment is part of the balance sheet. Water reliability, infrastructure strain, heat that punishes utility bills, a future where basic services cost more while local wages don't keep up. When you buy cheap, you need to know what you're buying into. A bargain home is only a bargain if it holds its value and remains livable. Otherwise, it's just a discounted problem. 7. Fresno. Not collapsing, being left behind, Fresno isn't failing in a dramatic way. That's what makes it dangerous. It's being abandoned slowly. The university still produces graduates. The city still functions. There are still families trying to live normal lives, but the exodus is quiet and steady. People leaving not because they hate the place, but because they can't see a future that feels secure. Water constraints aren't a headline in Fresno. They're an everyday calculation. Healthcare staffing strains aren't theoretical. They're felt in wait times, access, and quality. And the smoke season doesn't just ruin a weekend. It resets what normal living means for months. Housing gets cheaper when fewer people want to anchor their kids there. And the families who stay often do it because they have roots, not because they have options. That's the difference between a stable market and a trapped one. In stable markets, people stay because they want to. In trap markets, they stay because leaving costs too much. When you see prices that look like opportunity, ask yourself, are you looking at value or at abandonment being priced in? 6. San Diego. The postcard with soft rot. Underneath San Diego still looks perfect from a distance. That's the trick. Palm trees, ocean air, clean visuals. It sells itself. But inside the glossy shell, the gears that drove the surge started grinding down. Military moves, corporate consolidation, biotech reshuffles, investors tightening risk, and renters who used to serve as the market's shock absorber started disappearing as costs outpaced salaries. When renters leave, investors don't just lose yield, they lose the logic. The condo market especially becomes brutally honest in downturns. Fees, maintenance, insurance, special assessments, vacancies. A condo isn't just a purchase. It's a monthly obligation with a neighborhood board attached. When values fall, those fixed costs don't fall with them. That's when great deal turns into permanent overhead. San Diego's median dipped hard from the million-plus territory into the high eights, with pockets getting hammered worse. And yes, you can still buy views, but you'll pay for them in ways that don't show up on the listing. Rising insurance, tightening policies, and the creeping sense that the market is being held up by outsiders who treat the city like a trophy, not a home. A trophy market works until the trophy loses shine. 5. Sacramento. The safe bet that stopped being necessary. Sacramento was supposed to be stability, government jobs, predictable payroll, a calmer lifestyle compared to the coast. It was pitched as California's practical choice, not glamorous, but reliable. Then remote work made proximity to state offices less valuable. If you can do the job from anywhere, you don't pay Sacramento prices just to be near the capital. You take the paycheck and move where the house costs less, the taxes bite less, and the air doesn't turn into a seasonal hazard. The suburbs filled with oversized homes built for a demographic that started shrinking. New developments kept going up because builders were still living in yesterday's demand forecast. Meanwhile, pension obligations and municipal budgets didn't shrink. Cities don't get to downsize their responsibilities just because residents leave. And then wildfire seasons escalated, pulling the entire region into a new kind of anxiety. Not if, but when. When the air quality collapses, when evacuation planning becomes annual, when insurance underwriting starts treating entire corridors like liabilities. Sacramento can still be livable, but the narrative that it's immune is gone. And once the safe bet label disappears, prices have to stand on real fundamentals, not stories. 4. Oakland culture, chaos, and the cost of uncertainty. Oakland used to feel like the alternative to San Francisco. Real, electric. A place where community had weight and the money hadn't sterilized everything yet. Now it's a market where the discount is telling you something. Yes, you can find homes for numbers that would have been laughed at during the peak. Yes, there are neighborhoods with beauty and bones, craftsmen's, Victorians, hillside views. But buyers aren't just buying a house. They're buying exposure to uncertainty. Schools that struggle to stabilize. Public services strained. Crime that isn't a statistic, it's a lifestyle tax. When perception gets bad enough, the market doesn't care how charming your kitchen is. It cares whether families will move in behind you. A city can absorb a wave of negative headlines if the fundamentals remain strong. But when fundamentals wobble and the exit door is wide open, the middle class leaves first. And when the middle class leaves, the market gets hollow. Hollow markets don't rebound quickly. They drift. They stagnate. They become playgrounds for speculators and landlords, not families. 3. San Jose. The valley that ran out of bodies San Jose didn't just dip. It got exposed. For years, the prices were justified by the same sentence. It's Silicon Valley. That sentence used to mean something specific. High salaries, constant hiring, infinite venture money, an endless pipeline of new workers arriving and needing housing immediately. Then the machine changed. Mergers, layoffs, automation, and the brutal reality that companies can produce more output with fewer humans. Campuses became symbols instead of workplaces. Office space didn't just become optional, it became a bad expense. Developers built thousands of units for a wave that never arrived. And once supply shows up late to a party that already ended, pricing doesn't gently adjust. It snaps. Medias that once hovered north of 1 million slid fast toward numbers that would have sounded impossible. Smart homes, solar, glass walls, the future, now sold with discounts and incentives. But the deeper issue isn't the house. It's the question behind it. What paycheck ecosystem is going to support the next buyer at the next price? If the local labor market is thinning and the prestige premium is evaporating, the house becomes a beautiful object in a shrinking buyer pool. That's not appreciation. That's decoration. 2. Los Angeles. The dream factory turns into a distressed market. Los Angeles never sold shelter. It sold mythology. Owning in LA meant you made it. A pool, a view, a zip code people recognized. The idea that your house was part investment, part identity. Then the fantasy got expensive to maintain. Production slowed. Careers stalled. Influencer money built on easy credit and constant brand deals tightened. And the class that fueled rentals started leaving or downgrading fast. When the renter base shrinks, investor demand shrinks. When investor demand shrinks, prices lose one of their strongest pillars. Then you get the real monster, carrying costs, insurance that jumps, coverage that shrinks, fire risk that turns from abstract to personal the moment a nearby hillside goes up. Owners stare at a home they love and realize they're paying luxury level overhead on an asset that is no longer behaving like a luxury investment. Median prices dropped from near 1 million toward the high sevens, with plenty of sellers cutting deeper just to stop bleeding. And you're seeing the emotional unraveling. People listing under value, people walking away, people trying to cash out before the next bad season hits. LA didn't die, but it got forced to live without its own illusion. 1. San Francisco, the religion loses its God. San Francisco was never just a city. It was a belief system, a place where people accepted absurd costs because they believed they were buying into the future. A decade of tech wealth turned the skyline into a shrine and the housing market into a cult of inevitability. Then, remote work exiled the congregation. The high earners didn't just move across town. They left the state. They left the country. They dispersed into places where taxes feel less punitive, space feels more real, and the daily environment feels less like a pressure cooker. The offices still exist, but empty offices don't pay mortgages. They don't bid up homes. They don't pack restaurants. They don't generate the buzz that keeps a city's brand alive. So the math flipped. The rent-to-value equation turned ugly. Investors stopped pretending the numbers made sense. Families stopped pretending the lifestyle trade-off was worth it. And values slid hard from the million-plus peak into the low eights in the median, with some neighborhoods getting hit even worse. San Francisco still has beauty. It still has world-class food, scenery, architecture, and energy when it wants to. But cities are not sustained by aesthetics. Oh, they're sustained by people who can afford to live there and still believe it's worth it. When belief leaves, prices follow. And that's the real story. Not that San Francisco got cheaper, but that it lost its spell. What this really is. You've been told to watch for a correction. This isn't just a correction. A correction is when a market sobers up, but keeps its job, its identity, its buyer pool. What you're watching is a repricing of risk, a brutal recalculation of what it costs to live in places where water is stressed, insurance is unstable, taxes are heavy, and the job market is no longer a guaranteed escalator. And here's the part that matters if you're a man making real decisions. Decisions that affect your family, your savings, your future. A cheap house doesn't automatically mean a good move. A deal can still be a trap. So if you're looking at these markets and thinking, this is my chance, run a tighter checklist than most people ever do. 1. Can you insure it long term without gambling? Not for now. Not this year. Long term. 2. What is the local employment engine? And is it growing or shrinking? A city without a growing engine doesn't create new buyers. Without new buyers, you're relying on hope. 3. What are the real carrying costs? Taxes, insurance, utilities, HOA, maintenance, commute costs if work changes again. 4. What would make you leave, and could you sell fast if you had to? If your exit requires the market to be hot again, you're not investing, you're praying. 5. Are you buying a home to live in for a decade, or are you trying to win a short-term trade? Because short-term trading in a market like this is how people get crushed. This is the moment where the smart move isn't buy or run. The smart move is precision. Know why you're buying. Know what you're buying. Know the risks you can absorb, because the next wave of buyers won't be wide-eyed dreamers. They'll be cold operators, investors from other states, people with cash, patience, and zero romance about California. They'll buy distressed, rent hard, flip if possible, and bail the second the risk curve tilts. That means if you're stepping in now, you need to step in like an adult, not like a believer. You didn't expect California to bleed like this. Most people didn't, but the signs weren't hidden. Layoffs, hollow offices, rising rates, shrinking insurance, water stress, fire risk, an exodus of the exact earners who once made these markets feel invincible. Now, houses are cheaper than they've been in years. And the uncomfortable truth is this: the people who needed those cheaper prices the most are often the ones who already left, or the ones who can't take the risk even at a discount. So ask yourself straight: are you buying a home, or are you buying the last seat on a ship that's already taking on water? If you're still shopping in these cities, say it plainly where and why. And if you're walking away, say that too. Because the smartest men I know don't pretend. They calculate, they commit, and they refuse to be the last guy holding the bag.